Hey friends, Flesher here. I'm here to talk to you a little bit about how to make sure that your learning tracker is up to date this week. So, first things first, let's remember this is a document that you are going to be using across 2 quarters. So, if it's blank, that's fine. It should be blank at this point, unless you have been ambitious and trying to fill out for checkpoint 1 on your Wednesday workshop days. For most of us, the developed draft of our cultural story is going to be the first thing we put on here other than our Padlet. So earlier this week, Hinderly had you go back to your stories and code them to make sure that you were covering all parts of this standard that we reworded together in class a few weeks ago. So we have said that in order to write a story and make it sound realistic, we need to use key details, a well-kept timeline, and narrative techniques to invoke different feelings and sound realistic. So in your lesson on Monday with Miss Hinderly, you opened up your story, you made sure that it was a complete story by labeling all parts of the structure, and then you highlighted the key details, the places where you paid really close attention to your timeline by adjusting your pacing, and the places where you use narrative techniques to make your story feel more realistic. So for most of us, this is checkpoint 1. The first time I demonstrated this skill is in my developed draft of my cultural story. Ta-da! I would like to make my learning tracker so that when I click on these words, I can actually open my developed draft. So what I'm going to do is go over to my developed draft, and before I do anything, I want to make sure that it's shared with the people who are going to need access to it. So when I open it, I want to make sure that I've shared it with my writing partner and maybe my teacher. Well, definitely my teacher. Once I confirm that it's shared with all the right people, then I just click copy link and I take it back over here to my learning tracker. Once I'm back over here at my learning tracker, I want to make sure that I have highlighted all the words that I want to make the link, and then I just click insert link. And on a Chromebook, I'm just going to click Control V to paste the link to my developed draft in there, and voila, I should be able to just clicky, and I can see my developed draft with all of my beautiful comments that tell me exactly what I know about what I did in this story. Beautiful. So for checkpoint 1, most of you have noticed that the boxes here are black, and you've been asking, do I need to type anything in here? And the answer to that question is no, you don't have to type anything in here, because I'm not asking you to assess your work right now, and Hindo's not asking you to assess your work just yet. We know that in the act of going back and coding your story, you probably found a lot of things that you want to change about it. So you're going to use your Wednesday and your Friday workshop time to go back and change those things. And then when you're done, you'll put like my second draft of my cultural story. And then you'll link us to that. But right now, you haven't done that yet. You've just done this first part. If you are someone who has already filled out checkpoint 1, maybe you wrote like a really killer journal entry up here and you were like, oh yeah, that was like me practicing my best story writing skills. And you're ready to talk about how we would put in the developed draft as checkpoint 2. Here is the exact place that you want to be. So I'm just going to flip over to an example of a different learning tracker. And on this one, you can see like I have linked to a journal entry because like I felt like in slide 11 of my journal, I was really using a lot of narrative techniques. I was doing a good job keeping a good timeline, and I was really invoking very specific details. So for me, I was like, yeah, that's good enough to be my checkpoint. If that's the case, and I want to use my second draft of my cultural story as checkpoint 2, then I'm going to do the same thing that I did in the first video. I'm just going to go ahead, copy that link, activate it here, voila. Now I'm ready to assess my work. So I need to think about, like, did my cultural story do all of these things? In order to sound intelligent in this little box, I want to make sure that I'm being pretty specific. I have to cite evidence for my claim of whether or not I am meeting the standard. So I am going to go back and look at my comments to see what I said. If I look at my story here, it looks like I'm good with that comment. I felt confident about that one and that one. Felt good there. Felt good there. I like that. I feel pretty satisfied with my first two comments, but I can see in my third comment, I was starting to think about how I would revise this story. So I noted that on page 5 of my story, that was the closest I got to reflection, and I'm wondering if the end of my story needs to contain more reflection. I am unsure about it in this comment, so let me keep scrolling and see what else. I'm okay with that comment. I'm okay with that one and that one. Okay, so now I'm going to look at these other comments here at the ending, which if I'm satisfied with the ending, then I'm probably going to just let the reflection piece go, because I think if I think I have a good ending, sometimes reflection can feel a little bit cheesy. So I would have a justification for letting that go. If I'm unsatisfied with my ending, though, I have to really consider if I dislike it because it's missing that reflection piece. So in this comment, I said, as the writer, I feel like this is the turning point of the story because this is the moment where I realized that everything was going to be okay. But I just realized that the second half of this moment is in the beginning of my story. So like the moment starts here and then this stuff happens. And then back down at the end, I really struggled with like how to center myself back in that timeline. So I might want to revise that. I liked it as a hook at the beginning, but I wonder if it's important for my readers to see the relief I felt down here so that they know that this interaction helped me feel safe and excited. I actually think that's a good point that I made here. I bet if I were to move that moment down here, like move this all the way down, I bet that that would also help me with my falling action, because like right now I have 2 sentences of falling action, and that's really not very much time to relieve 7 pages of tension. So I think that makes sense. Yeah. So as I look over those comments, I can really tell that I can see myself feeling like I want to move this moment back down to the bottom. And so that's what I'm going to make my comments about when I go back over to my learning tracker. So for me, I would say I think I'm getting close to the standard, but I don't love the way my story ends. I want to revise my ending to make sure that I have more falling action and that the timeline makes sense to my readers. Perfect. So at this point, I'm ready for some teacher feedback. And then my final artifact is probably going to mean that I have revised my story again, and I've cleaned up all the grammar, and I've made it as strong as I possibly can. At the point when I submit my final artifact, I really want to feel confident that I am like at least meeting the standard here, maybe even going beyond what was named. All right, and that is how the learning tracker is updated.